Well, welcome everybody to this session of the Woman Peacemakers Before and After 1935, Learning Processes of the Role of Women Peacemakers Globally. We are delighted to have with us today Visaka Dharmadasa, who will give our keynote address. This series and this session are organized by the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies at Seton Hall, the Center for Foreign Policy Studies at there, and it's co-sponsored by the United Nations Association of the USA, commonly known as UNA-USA, as well as the Inclusive Security Organization. My name is Anne-Marie Murphy. I'm a professor and director of the Center for Foreign Policy Studies at the School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall. And at this point, it is my pleasure to introduce David Wood. David is professor of practice at the School of Diplomacy and International Relations, as well as the MENA director for the organizer of this event, the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies. Professor Wood has explored participatory approaches to dialogue and mediation, especially during periods of open violence with national dialogue or political or when political negotiations become stalled. He has supported community level mediation processes, facilitated practical national dialogue processes, and organized community input into formal conflict management mechanisms. He holds an MA in Politics, Security, and Integration from Unity College London, and his BA is in Philosophy and Russian from Bristol University. David, over to you.
Thanks very much. Great to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I won't take up too much time, just to say that we're very glad to have the 9th session in a series looking at women, peace and security before and after 1325, which really tries to identify some of the lessons that we've learned from how we can promote the women, peace and security agenda more broadly, both to enable women to play a strong role within within peace and security agendas, but also to make sure those agendas do meet the needs of women as well within conflict zones. So this is a critical series of conversations at the School of Diplomacy and International Relations, but also for the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies. So it's something which for us is a benchmark of how we approach diplomacy and how we approach the provision and support of peace dynamics around the world. We're very happy, as always, that we're co-running this event together with the UNA USA and with Inclusive Security, with our fantastic colleagues, without whom this wouldn't be possible. As I said, we've run 9 sessions. We've looked at women, peace and security in Syria, in Bosnia, and broader the experience in Europe. In Kenya, Colombia, Liberia, Northern Ireland, Yemen, and South Korea. As you can see, this is a massive spectrum of experience over a wide range of years. And usually what I do is I try and go through some of the key lessons from each of those sessions, but I don't think we can now since we've had so many. But I will pull up on the last 2. So we heard from 2 sessions ago from Dr. Bilqis Abusba from Yemen, who really talked about how in Yemen, since the recent episode of violence, women have played a critical role in their networks and keeping relationships flowing across conflict divides. And through those relationships, solving very practical issues, such as opening roads or making sure that water infrastructure is rehabilitated. However, that role is not often supported well by the international community, and even the way that the international community approaches women, peace and security can undermine those networks and weaken their legitimacy on the ground. So the way in which we support women's networks to do their work is very essential. From Madam Christine Ann on Korea, we heard a little bit around how the dominant way that we think about security and conflict is often much more focused on military issues rather than human security. And with that focus, it can really provide limited room for women to play an active role, either because they're presumed not to be able to, or because of the physical security space being squeezed for them. So we also need to think a little bit more around how we can support security conversations that are more relevant for women and can be more inclusive of women. And I think that's one of the learnings we had earlier on in the series as well. Coming back to my mind now, the fact that I think this was our colleague from Columbia that was saying that, you know, we might have progressed quite well on the peace part of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, but not on the security part. So we need to make sure that women are involved in both discussions of peace. So I'm very grateful that we have our wonderful colleague who's come in to speak to us about her experience. And I apologize, I will pronounce the name a little bit wrong, Madame Visaka Dharmadasa. So thank you very much for joining us. We're very honored to have you, and I'm looking forward to learning from you. So Dr. Murphy, back over to you.
Well, thank you very much for that summary, David. At this point, I would like to introduce Rachel Pittman. Rachel is the Executive Director of the United Nations Association of the USA. As Executive Director of UNA USA, Rachel leads a grassroots advocacy movement of more than 20,000 Americans in over 225 chapters. And they're dedicated to supporting the work of the United Nations in their communities, on campuses, on Capitol Hill, and she guides the UNA USA's strategic work and key partnerships. She oversees membership expansion and spearheads important advocacy initiatives to help the United States advance the far-reaching goals of the United Nations, such as women, peace, and security. Rachel holds a BSBA in International Business from American University and an MBA in Marketing from Johns Hopkins University. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you, Anne, and hello, everyone. On behalf of the United Nations Association of the USA, I too would like to welcome everyone and thank you, each of you, for participating today. And I also want to thank Raja Atala and Maria Teresa Gonzalez Esquivel for their collaboration in this event. They are fabulous to work with. But this series is just to quickly say that this series is one of my favorite programs because it provides direct access to women, peace, and security change makers who are in the field and making an actual difference in their communities. The series also provides an opportunity to have real dialogues, learn from one another, and exchange ideas. So for those of you, if it's your first time, I think you are going to enjoy today. So what's on the minds of our UNA USA members and our UNA Women Affinity Group in particular, things that we're working on, we're about to get ready, even though it's a couple months away, for CSW. And so I just want to do a quick PSA for UN Women, because I think what we learned today is going to hopefully encourage you to take that and participate in other programs where you can collaborate. So on March 6th through 17th in 2023, UN Women is going to host the 67th session on the Commission on the Status of Women. And this is so important because this conference brings together representatives from member states, UN entities, NGOs from all regions around the world to contribute to this session. And so for this year, they're going to focus on innovation and technology change and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality. And then they're also going to focus on the conclusions from 2018, which challenges and looks at challenges and opportunities in achieving gender equality and the empowerment of rural women and girls. So we at UNA USA will be sending a delegation to CSW, encouraging others to participate in the parallel session, which is open to the public. But why am I telling you this at this session? A lot of the issues that we discuss around women, peace, and security and in this series will be also covered at CSW. And I believe it's so important to take what we learned today and find new allies that will move Resolution 1325 forward so that we can increase opportunities for prevention and resolution of conflicts, for peace negotiations, peace building, peacekeeping, humanitarian responses, and so forth. So please consider to not stop here. Please continue to participate in these series, but think of other ways that you can grow your network so that we can continue to do the work based on the learnings that we will have today. And if you would like to participate in our UNA USA network, I encourage you to visit unausa.org. So thank you all for participating, and I look forward to today's discussion.
Well, thank you very much, Rachel. It's always wonderful for all the audience to know what comes next and how they can continue the conversation. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce Ambassador Swanee Hunt, founder and chair of the Inclusive Security Organization. Ambassador Hunt is the founder of the Women in Public Policy program at Harvard University. In the mid-1990s, she represented President Bill Clinton as ambassador to Austria, where she hosted negotiations to stop the genocide in the neighboring Baltic states. Ambassador Hunt has worked in over 60 countries with thousands of women leaders. She's the founder of the Institute for Inclusive Security, a major force in the field of women, peace, and security. And her goal, just a little bit bold, is changing who makes decisions about war and peace. She has authored columns and articles for the New York Times, Foreign Affairs, Foreign Policy, and provided commentary on numerous television networks. Moreover, she is the author of 4 books that focus on foreign policy implications from the Bosnian War, as well as Rwandan women's roles in healing their country after their horrific genocide. Ambassador Hunt, delighted to have you.
Thank you. I'm so glad we can be a part. I'm glad to be with you personally, and also to be part of this whole Seton Hall initiative. And wow, when I heard that Visaka was going to be on, I said, I have to be part of this. Visaka, you can't tell I'm looking at you in the corner, but oh, by the way, I have this, I don't know if you can see my background here, but that makes me think of Visaka, because I'm about to give birth to, actually it's only one, it looks like 5 children. I'm at the hospital, and I'm editing an annual report while I'm standing there waiting for this baby to pop out. So Visaka, this one's for you. And I say that because Visaka is so much fun. I mean, you absolutely are right. She is a great advocate. She's a great organizer. She's a wonderful thinker, but she's just hilarious. And I hope that everyone who is watching this gets a chance to witness her, to feel her. And so, because when we talk about this work, Roger, you know how hard, I mean, we've worked together for a lot of years, and getting together at Harvard, Visaka was with us very early on. You were with us later, Raja, and watching what would happen when we had women from 10 different conflict areas. You've named a lot of them today already. And Visaka was the person who could be in the room and people gravitated to you, Visaka. And that's, look at her smile. I mean, she has a great smile, you know, and she's so loving. And I think of you on a personal level. You understand that our work at Inclusive Security is not really about women's empowerment. Frankly, women are powerful. The work that we're doing is to convince the policymakers that these women need to be the ones who are at the negotiating tables or putting together the ceasefires, et cetera. And that's one of the things we've done at Inclusive Security is to look at the research. What happens if you have women who are co-signing? an agreement. Does it last longer? And the answer is yes, by the way. And if they are helping write the Constitution, is it different? Yes, it is. And is it more inclusive of the needs of the community? So Visaka, the last thing I'll say to everyone, you know this, and that is that she is a real mentor to me. And when we first got together, I listened so carefully to your story about your son. I know where I was standing. I know what your face looked like. I know what I was feeling inside. And that has stayed with me for, 20 years. And it's still, when you talked about his birthday tomorrow, I don't know, it meant everything to me. And I thought about you at, the hospital, wherever you were, giving birth to him. And Visaka takes grief and she turns it into action. And there aren't many people who know how to do that. And you teach us, Visaka. You've taught me as I've gone through moments of grief. I've turned to you. I have watched you get far beyond what you were doing at the beginning of how I knew you when you were saying we need to have the dog tags to identify corpses, right? So we aren't left not knowing about if our sons were actually killed or are political prisoners. You became the name very quickly that was on one agenda after another, after another, after another, all over the world. I mean, I've never seen anything. I know no one like you who became this symbol of what women could do. And so I thank you and for what you've meant to me, but Visaka, I thank you for what you've meant to thousands and thousands of women, how you also have held the policymakers' feet to the fire, and also what you have done in the world. We're talking, Visaka, we're talking about, hundreds of millions, many, many hundreds of millions of people who are living a more sane life because of you. So thank you for letting me be here.
Well, thank you very much for that, Ambassador Hunt, and we're delighted to have you. And I think perhaps I should have just let you introduce our keynote speaker today, because you certainly have the longevity and the personal ties. But what I will do is give the rest of the audience a sense of some of Visaka's accolades and things that she's done on the ground. Obviously, Visaka Dharmadasa, she is the founder and chair of the Association of War-Affected Women and Parents of Servicemen Missing in Action in Sri Lanka. As she was struggling to help end the civil war, she was able to bring women together across the conflict lines to work for peace. Visaka, as Ambassador Hunt noted, educates soldiers, youth, and community leaders about the international standards of conduct in war and the importance of wearing ID tags in combat. She also works on disseminating the content of UN Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security, calling for the inclusion of women at all levels of peace building and decision making. In addition, she also trains women to run for political office and power sharing. In recognition of Visaka's work for peace, she was nominated for a collective Nobel Prize in 2005 as part of the 1,000 peace women across the globe, and she was awarded the extremely prestigious Humanitarian Award in 2006 by Interaction in Washington. She was appointed to the 3-member team to look into ceasefire violations by the government of Sri Lanka and to the consultation task force on reconciliation mechanisms in her country. Visaka holds a degree in negotiation and mediation skills and a woman in security from Harvard University. Visaka, the floor is yours. We look forward to your talk.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, and I want to thank Ambassador Swanee. Thank you very much. In fact, it is a pleasure and a privilege to be among you, to share the little work that I have done, but also to learn from you all and try to make life better. I mean, at least for one person. So that's exactly our mission. Just to give a very brief background of Sri Lanka and the conflict. The Sri Lankan population is 21 million and the majority are Sinhalese. And we also have 15% Tamils and the other. But the conflict, the root causes for the conflict was after independence in 1947, the government which came into office, not immediately, but slowly, they were discriminating the Tamil population. Because by the time the British left the country, most of the key positions were held by Tamil people. And though they were the minority, so the majority came into office, and in 1956, there was an act brought into the parliament making the Sinhala language the official language, which really created a problem for people who was not the mother tongue Sinhalese. So this was a big blow to the educated population and continuous discrimination. So the people, especially the minority Tamils, they had many peaceful consultations with the government, several pacts through the years. And finally, in 1976, the youth of especially in the northern peninsula, they decided that they'll have to take to arms because all the protests, the peaceful protests didn't answer. So then that 1983 was a crucial time. In 1983, 13 soldiers were killed in the northern part of the country. And when their bodies were brought to Colombo for cremation, the whole country, exactly, it was on flames. There were communal riots for nearly 2 weeks without government trying to control them. And hundreds of thousands Tamil people fled the country. That was exactly, I mean, I'm speaking about 1983. So a long time ago, but even at that time, I don't think even the UN had, spoke about the internally displaced at that time. So many people were internally displaced and hundreds of thousands left the country. So this was a very, very, what we call it the Dark July, which really started the armed conflict between the Sri Lankan government and various entities of armed youth, the Tamil armed youth. But finally, there were many groups, but some gave up arms and they all came together, and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam are the ones who were finally fighting the government of Sri Lanka. The warfare was different from now, but it was one of the most brutalist wars that, not only Sri Lanka, not only Asia, but the world have seen at that time. And the Liberation Tigers were called one of the most brutalist, terrorist organizations. They also did have women as fighters, not necessarily only, because we have heard many entities at that time had women, but they were not active fighters. But in Sri Lankan conflict, women were fighters. So this was something very significant. And then in 1995, the tsunami, when the tsunami hit, it was a very good moment for Sri Lanka to, I think it was 2005. Yeah, when the tsunami hit, it was a good moment for Sri Lanka, just like Indonesia, like Aceh. to really come together. We also had a mechanism which we call the post-tsunami mechanism, but it was not, I mean, the opposition parties of the country went to the courts and didn't let that particular mechanism to be implemented. So I mean, I just wanted to also emphasize that it's not the spoil. I mean, there were many actors in our conflict, especially the government of Sri Lanka and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, who was actively fighting. But internationally, India played a crucial role. They even brought a ceasefire, they brought an agreement, even the Indian soldiers, peacekeeping forces, much before even the UN peacekeeping forces, the Indian peacekeeping forces were in Sri Lanka. So India played a crucial role, but finally Norway came in as not as mediators, but as facilitators. So there is a distinct difference when you come to a conflict, whether you come as facilitators or you come as mediators, because as facilitators, I mean, you just facilitate the peace negotiations. You are not mediating between the parties. So that was, both sides told very clearly to Norway, you will facilitate. That's the time that we also got involved, especially the ceasefire. When my son went missing in 1998, we were looking really how to go to the jungles. It was very difficult. I mean, of course, there was an active fighting, and we had to get permission from many entities. And finally, 7 women, because wanted to also make them not feel, uneasy or suspect us. So 7 women, mothers of missing soldiers, went to the jungles and met the Liberation Tigers. That's the time that I mean, the first meeting I asked them that we came to see your claws and teeth because, and then they start laughing. I mean, that was also one time that we could make the connection there. And that, though even we didn't know, that paved the way for the ceasefire. So this was something very, very crucial. I mean, we didn't know that we were broker in the ceasefire at that moment, but because of the fact that us going there, speaking to them as mothers, did manage to make them understand and of course bring messages back to the government of Sri Lanka and tell them that they are also ready to talk. So that was the ceasefire, and then of course, the government went for peace talks under the facilitation of the Norwegians. But just before that, we collected signatures. We collected 70,000 signatures. I mean, every signature was spoken to. I mean, the signatory was spoken to. It was not you send a paper and ask for signatures. And of course, that day and time, we couldn't do it online. So the signatures, we took the paper, the men and women did sign the papers. So that's how we got the signatures and then handed over to the Norwegians even before the government of Sri Lanka officially invited them. So I mean, just to tell them that the population also want them to facilitate because we really, really desperately wanted peace. So that's how the ceasefire came into being and the negotiations. And during the negotiations also, we did launch the only track 2 level dialogue process in the country. So that was something significant also for a women's organization to do that. But of course, I think all of you know that we couldn't manage in the tsunami time like Indonesia. And by 2009, the war was escalated, and finally the government of Sri Lankan soldiers did defeat the LTT militarily. So that's how our war ended. But I say war ended, not the conflict, because the root causes of the conflict was not addressed. And even today, it's not fully addressed. And that's exactly the work that we do with the Sri Lankan Collective for Consensus, an entity of key civil society actors that we come together, 15 of them, because most of them were also in the conflict transformation dialogue, which we had parallel to the negotiations. So after 20 years, we are together once again to really push the government of Sri Lanka that the power sharing, I mean, in 13th Amendment to the Constitution is about power sharing, but it's not fully implemented. So you can have good legislation, but also if it is not implemented, the risk of going back, like we have seen many instances, going back to war is there. So that's why right now our work is exactly for a comprehensive reconciliation process, but for that, the root causes have to be addressed. The power sharing, I mean, the main thing is for power sharing. So that's exactly, though the provincial councils were established for the very reason, but it's not fully implemented. The police powers, the land powers are not yet devolved. So this is exactly what I'm doing. Looking at the interest of the time, I think I'll stop at that and I'll be ready for questions.
Well, thank you very much for such a fascinating discussion of the conflict, Visaka. And I think it's very interesting that you're talking about the role of women at a time that we all saw Swani's picture there of her about not women, mothers, right? And we've seen this in Argentina with the mothers of the desaparecidos. We see it in Russia. So certainly motherhood is a powerful, powerful symbol that can unite people across divides. At this point, I would like to invite everybody either to write your questions in the chat or raise your hand. And we have a raised hand from Rachel Pittman. So Rachel, why don't you kick off the discussion?
Great. Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Madam Visaka, for your remarks. And thank you for all the work that you do. You talked about something that I think hits home in a lot of countries, and you talked about how root causes need to be addressed. So here in the US, we are not going to address systemic racism until we talk about the need for jobs and better education and so forth. What are the root causes that still need to address that you are working on today?
I mean, especially power sharing. I mean, that's the biggest. That's what the government can do. The root causes of for the war was, I mean, as I told, the discrimination and also dignity, because I believe that the overarching cause was dignity. So that's why we also call that the answers also have to be dignified, and especially it's power sharing because of the fact that power is devolved through the 13th Amendment, but provincial council elections, I mean, not held for a couple of years now. So regular elections, and especially like even in COVID times, we told, look, you don't have to close the whole country. I mean, you could have closed only the provinces. So the devolution has a lot of positive things. So this is exactly what we are telling. Let the people of that area use the resources for their benefit, and and let them decide, so that we can be one country where everybody is happy.
We have another hand up from Raja Atali. However, can I just press you a little bit, Visaka, on the on this issue of root causes and how devolution of power might help address it? In your remarks, you mentioned that there was a an ethnic dimension, right, between the Tamils and the Sinhalese. Do those ethnic dimensions also coincide with regional differences? And is that why devolution of power from the center to the regions is a pivotal way of addressing that? Could you just expand on that 1 minute?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for exactly asking that question. Yes, the North and East is the majority of the people are Tamil speaking. There are Tamils as well. There are Muslims, as we call them, the Moors. They are also Tamil speaking. So the majority of the northern part of the country and the eastern part of the country are Tamil-speaking people, and that's why the devolution is extremely important for the language policy to be fully implemented, and also for them to really, decide of how they spend their resources, how they earn their resources, and how they really develop those areas. That is why it's important.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Raja?
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much, Visaka, for this great conversation. And I'm very happy that you are able to share with our audience your experience in involving or meaningful participation in peace and security, especially in Sri Lanka. I want to share with you that I believe that women needs their own support group around them when they are involved in peace and security. And in Syria, we have created women peace circles in order to really be able to counter the many challenges that women are facing in their, sometimes in their home, in their family, in their community, on the national level even. So it would be great to share your experience on how did you create your support group around you in Sri Lanka, especially with women, but also your support group, but not only in Sri Lanka, because I know that women around the globe are supporting each other. We heard from Ambassador Swani that how you supported each other in different times, and it would be good if you can expand on your support group in Sri Lanka, but also around the globe.
Yes, thank you also for that question, because the network that Swani created, we're still members of Women Waging Peace, and then there is also another entity, I think, Raja, you are also with me in that, the WASP, the Women's Alliance for Security Leadership. So, these are great networks and great support for women. So, knowing that there is thousands of women there, and just you can get thousands of emails in one go, makes a big difference when we take the risk, because women at the grassroots level building peace in conflict zones do take very much risk. So that's a great support. Having said that, I must also say in Sri Lanka what we were doing. And one thing that it is not only women, even men, they also do need the support. So it's not necessarily only women, but especially after the Easter Sunday bombing, we have created what we call the peer committees, 10 each in different districts, across religion, across ethnicities. Because especially after Easter Sunday bombing, though 30 years long war was there was, I must say, fear among the communities, but Easter Sunday bombing really created shock in the country for 1.5 months. That's why we used to joke and tell, COVID, you have to put regulations to restrict us coming out of the houses. But the bomb really kept us 1.5 months indoors. So just to come out of that, because people were scared. The moment they see the head is covered, people were so scared. So for that, we brought in women together, the Christian, the Muslims, the Hindus together, and every month they met. and did something good for the community. They brought their husbands, they brought their children, they brought food of each other's. So those peer committees, we have 15 peer committees. ICANN is supporting them. The International Civil Society Action Network is supporting that initiative of ours. It's really one lesson I have learned, very little money, but on where is reconciliation is concerned, it really makes a huge difference of these women coming together. I'll take a half a minute to tell. Very recently on a Sunday, I was getting calls and I was thinking, why this lady is calling me on a Sunday? You know, she was going on calling me. When I pick up the phone, she said, Visaka, I'm so happy. The happiest day in my life. She's a Sinhalese police officer's wife. She's also a local government member. She said, all my 30-year public life, today was the happiest. As the peer committees, we went to a plantation and we met these Tamil ladies. We were holding hands together. And that was the happiest day of mine. So very little money, but the women at the grassroots level and at all levels. When women come together, the dynamics change. And that's why we say we do need women at all levels.
All right, well, that was certainly a powerful message for needing women at all levels. But at this point, we have hands from 2 of our male attendees. So at this point, I am going to turn the floor over to, and I apologize, I am probably going to mispronounce your name, Ashanta Tangia.
Hi, yes, that's perfect. Hi, madam. I'm also from Sri Lanka, and yes, exactly. I moved from Sri Lanka in '91, so I still had to go through 80 to 83 event. Now closely working with UN, after the 2009, it's the UN report says about 40,000 casualties. And the accountability, we're still pushing the government for the accountability, regardless which party, which government comes, they try to deny it because whatever the reason. And in the US and Western countries pushing Sri Lanka for accountability, yet because of the geopolitics, China's influence in Sri Lanka, we want to be, the US want to be more friendly to Sri Lanka, and that we have to take step back on accountability. I'm pivoting to Bangladesh, you know, whatever happened in 1971, still, when we have a session in UN, people come and ask for accountability. The same thing, to have a proper peace, like you were saying, power sharing, it's also accountability. It's something something must be done, but as far as knowing the Sri Lankan government, it will ever happen. That's my concern, if you have any vision about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because the question was the root causes, that's why I didn't come for these reconciliation mechanisms. But, you know, I mean, I'm waiting for my son to come and to really know what has happened. So perfectly understand, we do have a huge missing issue, the disappearances issues. Though between 2015 and 2019, we were able to establish the Office for the Missing Persons and also the Office for Reparations. But currently we are speaking with the Minister of Foreign Affairs on a Truth Commission. So we as a civil society is pushing, and also believe that the government of Sri Lanka, the current president knows. I mean, he had been working with us on these issues for a long time. It was definitely the Rajapaksas really created more problem. I mean, I think you are familiar about that, but we do believe that now again, a small window of opportunity is there. And definitely people know, I mean, families have a right to know what has happened to their loved ones. and then of course all the other things which is coming. So that's why the Truth Commission, and definitely the accountability, because it's extremely important. That's why there is no peace without justice. We strongly believe in that. So let's work together. I'm also working with the diaspora. I mean, Amranath Amarsingham, Kumar Nadesan as well, right now in London. With all of them, yes, working together. Let's work together, because we have to work together to come out of this, for permanent peace in the country.
All right. Well, thank you very much. David Wood, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the talk. Building on this question around dealing with the past and dealing with the issue of missing persons, I myself was working in Sri Lanka in 2009, trying to support police reform processes to, in a light touch way, try and demilitarize the police a little bit, turn them into civilian actors. At that point, there was no space for that work to take place. We ended up stopping the program, which not everyone was happy with. But I want to see what role women can play in supporting police and security reform within Sri Lanka, especially as one of the running themes we have in our conversations is that women are often stuck talking on the so-called soft issues around peace and reconciliation, and have often less space to work directly on police reforms, security reforms, civilian oversight of security sector. So it'd be good to get your sense of the role that women have and can play on this in Sri Lanka.
I mean, I don't agree that women play only the soft issues. We are training women to run for, for peacekeeping, because we have had a regional conference in Sri Lanka on women peacekeeping, because we also do believe that the UN have to increase the numbers of women in peacekeeping. We strongly believe that. And also have been working very closely with the police, and also through a program which we call From Militarization to Normalcy, and with the military itself. Have been working very closely with the military. I think Ambassador Swani also can remember at Harvard, we met the security sector people, and also working with the government of Sri Lanka. I have been working very closely with the Sri Lankan military on identification tags, and through the consultation task force on reconciliation mechanisms, we were also working with them. So I believe that women, yes, because Ida Kuklina from Russia told Visaka, remember, every general have a mother. So look at their eyes and talk to them directly. So that's a lesson what I learned from Ambassador Swan is, the colloquiums. I take it back home, and we were also asking and requesting and could manage to have women in police, especially to have more women in the police force in the North and East, women who speak the same language, to man the women's desks. So I do believe that women definitely, not only the soft issues, I mean, we do really advocate for nuclear weapons. We do really advocate for the wars to be stopped everywhere in the world.
Okay, thank you very much for that. At this point, I'm delighted to have one of my students speak. Pariwish, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Murphy, and thank you so much, Madam Visaka, for the very inspiring talk. My question was, why was it important for you to write the petition and submit it for, in welcoming Norway for their role as a mediator? When I was hearing it, it seems that you wanted to make sure that public opinion is integrated in that big policy making decisions, which is just usually very easily ignored. But what were your motivations to do that, and how important was it to really value the general opinion of people? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Most of the work that we did as women, we did it because we really, really wanted to do it. We desperately wanted to stop the deaths, the killings. And we knew that if we heard that Norway is ready to facilitate, and we really wanted also to legitimate the Norway coming in as facilitators. Not only the government of Sri Lanka is inviting, but the people are inviting. So to really bring that legitimacy, that's why we took these 70,000 signatures to the Norway embassy. When Ambassador Westborg was there on a Saturday, he came to the embassy to really receive that signatures. We don't have any photographs because as women, we are very poor and very weak in documenting. So we went with these 70,000 signatures, took a camera, and I didn't have the batteries. So you can imagine, I have only one photograph where the newspapers had it in the front page. So I have that newspaper cutting from that.
Thank you very much for that response. Are there other questions out in the audience? Because I could ask Visaka questions all afternoon long, but it is this is your opportunity. All right, well, I will let you think through a few more. So Visaka, I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit to follow up on your comment that now that the Rajapaksa family is out of power, that there is a window of opportunity. Obviously, we all watched those extremely powerful images of the people going into the, presidential palace and other homes and essentially kicking the prime minister and the president out. And clearly having them out creates a window of opportunity, but as I understand it, one of the key factors that led to the protest movements was the devastating economic crisis that Sri Lanka finds itself in. And obviously, poor economic times often produce conflicts. So can you speak a little bit about the interplay of, the economic crisis and prospects for peace and how that might fit in? As we all know, women are in charge of the household budgets. They will be bearing the burden of those economic crises. So can you talk a little bit about how that might be impacting?
I will start from a positive side of the crisis. Because when we, definitely in March, on the 30th of March, we women came to the streets. We told whoever can come to the streets, come to the streets. But others, even from your homes, but light a lamp, light a candle, and ask the deities to give wisdom to our politicians. Because we, it was a very powerful political message, but we did it in a very mild way, in a very creative way. So the struggle on the 30th of March, we started. And also, by that time, the farmers were on the streets because of the fertilizer protest. And for the first time, Sri Lanka saw that spontaneously people, mainly youth, across all divides, coming in to protest. Of course, it was because of the economic crisis. But that kind of people coming together to challenge the president, who was a former military person, who was supposed to be, came into office because people felt insecure after the Easter Sunday bombing, but to really oust him, that people's power, we are very, very happy. I've been telling always, even the Pair of the University, you have to document, because this is very unique time in our history. Of course, I don't I mean, I don't agree with going to the presidential palace or the prime minister's office and vandalizing them, but the call for them to step down is extremely important. And that was done not only in Sri Lanka, but with the diaspora, whoever, everywhere in the world. So that was something very important. But when you speak about the peace building, you know, we went to Wabunia and we had a workshop with the civil society, academics and all. What was told to us was, look, for 30 long years, we didn't have much food, we didn't have power, we used the bicycle dynamos to listen to the radios. You all in the South didn't understand that. So the connection, and that's exactly what we wanted to tell the people, look, our own people in the North and East did undergo this economic crisis because of there was the government imposed economic embargoes. You know, thanks to close proximity to India, I mean, the stuff was coming from there, the essentials, even the blood was coming from there. But you know, that economic embargo we imposed on our own people. So for the South to realize that, I think it's important. Having said that, I must also say the Sri Lankans have to work hard and also really have to monitor their politicians. You can't vote and let them go for 5 long years, but you really have to monitor and challenge them. And we want to also demand a recalling system, even we have voted them. The current president is the most experienced politician in the country, have had a vision, and we do believe that he will manage to pull us out. The country, when British left, was the promising country of Asia, having the first hotel and the broadcasting corporation. So we really, really believe that we can come out of this crisis. But also we have to come out together as one country, but having our own identities and our own aspirations intact. Are different, you know, aspirations and identities.
That's really fascinating. When I was doing my graduate work at Columbia, one of the faculty on the staff was Howard Riggins. He was the former US ambassador to Sri Lanka in the late 1970s. And we used to talk about the similarities between Indonesia and Sri Lanka, as well as the differences. And he always repeated to me, and it still stays in my head, how his conversations with some of the political leaders then was that they had never found as powerful a tool to mobilize voters and supporters as the ethnic and religious differences, and how that then, you know, set the stage for the conflicts that Sri Lanka has endured since then. All right, I am delighted that there are quite a number of questions. So Raja, you were the first up. Is Raja not there? Okay, then perhaps we will, Raja, do you have your mic on? We will come back to Raja. Maria, would you like to make your comment or question?
Thank you very much, Dr. Murphy. And yeah, but I just want to check in with you. There are some questions in the chat, and they were written before I raised my hand. So would you like to go with them first? And then, I mean, I'll wait for my turn in the line.
I am so glad that I have somebody like Maria, you know, to call my attention to the things that I am missing. I will read one of the questions here, which is from Layla. And she asks, how did you as a woman impose your presence as peacemakers on the parties to the conflict?
I mean, we went as mothers, and spoke to them as mothers when we went there. So to tell you frankly, I mean, I learned about the terminology of conflict transformation after I have done it practically. So when we went, we did it what we have to do. So that's how we went. And also, it's very powerful when you are passionate, when you really, really want the answers, when you really want to get something done. So I think that's the power of women. We really, really are very powerful of trying to get something done when we really want it to be done.
Okay, thank you very much. I see that Raja is back. So Raja, why don't we go to you at this point?
Yeah, sorry, I lost the internet in a bit. So thank you so much, Visaka. Visaka, and everyone, like, I just want to say on December 1st, actually, we are having our next Women, Peace and Security event with a woman leader from Afghanistan as well. So, and I know that like in Afghanistan, the main like issue, or many issue, but one of the issue that women are focusing on at the moment is education. And I would like to hear from you, Visaka, how are you looking into education, and how are you looking into like the role of women peace builders and the woman involvement in security has either shaped like the education in Sri Lanka, or could be shaping the education in Sri Lanka for women and or everyone else?
Thank you, Raja. I mean, Sri Lanka, even among the South Asian countries, we have a 92% literacy rate. So, I mean, our higher education, it's more than 75% women in the universities. So people really invest on girls' education. So there is no discrimination for a woman or a man. You know, I'm 65 years. From my small age, it's all both girls, boys, all go to school. I mean, who drops. But it's not that because you are a girl, you drop, or because you are a boy, you drop. I mean, so where education is concerned there. But having said that, I must also say, during the wartime, especially in the northern part of the country, I mean, it was an active warfare. So the girl, women and men all did miss education. I mean, men were fighters, women, some were fighters, but others couldn't carry out their education. And that's the reason that I told you when I was at Pennsylvania, this Juniata College, when I heard that there is a movement or an initiative to educate Afghan women, at that time I was thinking, if the diaspora can help us, it would have been very nice if there is an initiative to educate Tamil women. So that was there. And as I told you, I have been also, speaking to the women, LTT women, and I encourage them. In fact, I took a faculty from the US, really looking to see and encourage them, to inspire them on education, the LTT women, because what I told them is once there is peace in the country, the diaspora will come and take all the officers. You will have to go to the kitchens. So have some initials behind your names so that you can still be there in decision making. Thank you, Raj. I think I answered your question.
I think so. Can I just ask a clarification question, please, Visaka?
Yeah.
You have repeatedly mentioned the diaspora, and as you just said, if the Tamil women didn't educate themselves, then when the conflict ends, you'd have those who exited the country, didn't live through the hard times, come back, take over certain powers. We've seen that be a huge barrier to sustainable peace in a lot of places around the world. You know, Palestine is probably one of the most critical. How big is the Sri Lankan diaspora?
Very big, very big. Canada, US is not that large, but Canada and Europe, UK, Australia has diaspora of Sinhalese and Tamils. US have some also Sinhalese, especially in the California part, but Canada has a significant amount of Sri Lankan diaspora, and of course UK.
Okay, thank you very much.
And also the issue is also when we are working, I think Syria is the same thing, and many of our countries, when we are working for permanent peace, we also have to work very closely with the diaspora because of the fact that they are with the frozen mentalities. They are with like the gentleman Shanta who spoke to me. He have left in 1991. Today we are speaking in 2022. Things have changed, but they remember only 1991 or 83. So that really, when we are building peace, we really have to work with the diaspora as well, because they are great influencers, especially because of the fact, for many reasons. Some, they really want to be in their host countries. They don't want to come back. So that influence is there, but also they send money. So, I mean, it can be good, but also sometimes bad.
Understood. Maria, why don't we go over to you?
Thank you very much, Dr. Murphy. Visaka, you mentioned women combatants, during the conflict. So I'm not sure if you could elaborate a bit more on the role that women played on peacemaking and the role they also played in combating extremism and violence. Because there's a lot of arguments sometimes between the role of women and men, and some of the people that are a bit skeptical about the role of women in peacemaking sometimes use that argument that women engage in violence as well. So could you please elaborate a bit more about that?
I mean, yes, we are human beings, right? We are also fighting for equality, definitely. I mean, the Liberation Tigers did have a very strong women's wing who were active fighters. So, I mean, yes, there is no question they were active fighters because they believe also the cause, and they joined and they did fight. But why are we telling that women are important and they're very special for peace building? Because of the fact that we do bring a different perspective to the negotiating table. I mean, also we are socially constructed in a way, as well our natural instinct. We as mothers, we do know about our babies, even if they don't talk. Before they even talk, we do understand what they want. That instinct we as women do possess, right? So these are the values that we bring into the table. We do understand, and a very small bit for what I always say. Two men in a same compartment in a train go 200 miles, they get down without even knowing each other. Two women in a compartment, not even 200 meters, they know about their families, every possible thing. So, I mean, this is the difference. This is the difference that for peace building is extremely important. You have to talk to each other. You have to understand each other, even if they don't talk. That is important for peace building. And that's why we want to have more women.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to go to the chat, and we have a question from Maria Villalobos Arifo, and she asks that she would like to ask Visaka about the role that UN Security Council 1325 played during the peace talks between the government and the Tamil Tigers. Did women use 1325 as an advocacy tool? Was it significant to them? What did women know about it, or did they rely more on local instruments?
Frankly speaking, yes, on local instruments, because at that time, I mean, 1325, yes, it's 2000, October 31st. But having said that, I must also say, I took a page of the Norwegian National Action Plan, where they speak about if they are in peace building anywhere in the world, that they will adhere to Resolution 1325. So we did use 1325, and we also call it our Bible because we use it to secure our due places. So though at that time when Sri Lankan peace process started, it was not there, like, 1999, 2000, not that women knew about the Resolution 1325, but having said that, I must say that world over, that's the resolution which is translated to more languages than any other resolution, and it's used day in and day out by the women to secure their position. So we, as I took the page of the Norwegian Action Plan to the Special Envoy to show them and tell, look, you have this on 1325, so you have to implement it.
And so can I ask you, as you are trying to use 1325 as a tool, as an advocacy mechanism, and you just said that you went to the government and said, you have to help us, implement this. Did you get a better response because of 1325? Did it make a significant difference?
It has made a significant difference throughout the world, because women call for more women in political spaces, especially because of the fact that we know anywhere for negotiations, just like what Monica McWilliams had to do. They had to establish a political party to be at the table, because it's normally the government, the politicians who will be going for the negotiations, other than, of course, Luz Mendes and Shadia, who came from the non-state actors' sides. But otherwise, if you have to represent your government, you have to be in politics. And that's the reason that where 1325 is extremely important. We did try to have a national action point for Sri Lanka in 2008. That would have been the first one for Asia, but it was very difficult with the then government. 2015, we were working with the UN women, even the Ministry of Women's Affairs have an agreement. I think Resolution 1325 is an extremely important tool. It has many positive sides, even for Syria. I can remember we were in Geneva. It's because of 1325. And at that time, we thought, yes, 1325 is working. At that time, we thought, yes, 1325 is working. If you all can really remember, we were pushing for women to be there. We gathered, the UN women gathered in Geneva. They, I think, met in even Jordan for Syria. So at that time, we thought, yes, there is a difference. But, it's not. We still have to really, really bang the doors.
Okay.
So if you allow me, and Marie, I just want to say something about Syria. So thank you so much, Visaka, for mentioning the techniques that we used within Syria, to establish the Women Advisory Board. And we definitely use 1325 to do that. And actually, we use 1325 since the beginning of the Syrian revolution in 2011, and we were calling for direct participation of women in the negotiation and in the peace process. But in 2015, part of the women movement took the decision that, okay, this is what we got. The Women Advisory Board is the one that we got. We will keep pushing for women participation, direct women participation, but through the Women Advisory Board, we will continue to have the women voices and the women input and perspective on peace and security and on the future of the country through this mechanism. And we there are part of the Syrian women movement are working actually towards or pushing towards having a national action plan. And the country is divided into at least three parts. And we are saying that, like, even if we have it on different parts, that would be helpful, even like on the level of the Office of the Special Envoy, like what are the women, the agenda for women, peace and security in Syria. Could be helpful, especially by civil society, like if it's designed by civil society. And then like we would be pushing like the governments, but it has been very helpful and it could be more. It could be more useful and we can push it more. And I know that more lesson learned between, like, for example, Syria and Sri Lanka could be useful, or Sri Lanka and other country could be definitely useful.
Thank you. I'm just going to take half a minute because also Sri Lanka had we have to also thank the Norwegians, had the first gender subcommittee within the peace process. So Sri Lanka is the one, the peace process is the one who exactly established the gender subcommittee. 5 women from the government side and the 5 women from the Liberation Tiger side. So really look into the gender concerns within the peace process. So that's, I think Colombia also had some kind of similar mechanism.
Okay, well, I think that Leila and Visaka have just identified the next research project for the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, which is this comparative lessons learned between Syria and Sri Lanka. There is a question in the chat from Monique, and it regards climate change. She wants to ask, how has climate change affected Sri Lanka's needs for climate resolution? And has climate equity affected Sri Lankan policy needs? And what are the requested solutions, particularly with regard to financial support?
Yes, our president was in Egypt, last couple of days, also calling together with the Maldives, I think, calling for a university of climate studies, because we are an island nation and we do have impact of the climate changes, and also, women and climate, because the women are the ones who are affected, because they are the ones who are also working, whether it's the ocean rising, whether it's the coconut trees are getting, and whether they are the palmyra, or not the palmyra, but also the mangroves that they use for basket making. So all these things, the houses. So we are also working with women, really looking at the climate issues and also the central hills of the country. We do the water, the environment, the soil conservation. So all these things, especially also looking at the SDGs, where the climate is, and building the nexus between the women, food security, and the climate. So we are also working on that, and Sri Lanka is really looking forward for it, and the president have a special advisor for the climate change, and we want to have a university because we are an island nation.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Are there other questions out there? Leila, I see a hand up from you, but you had also written a question in the chat. The floor is yours if you'd like to jump in.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I to the answer. First, my name is Leila Lutf. I'm from Yemen, a mediator in Yemen, especially in the field of detainees exchanges and prisoners. So as a local mediator, first, I thank you so much for letting me the chance to be with you, because this is a so important event for me, because as I see that this, I'm saying the name correctly, Visaka. I mean, I can like have contact with you even later, because from the everything that you are saying is so important for us, because in Yemen we have a very big issue, which is that the woman exclusion in all the peace process, through the national and the international society. We only our role is only being as consultants. So it would be very good for us if we can benefit from your experience. And also, I wanted to know that you said that you had collected signatures. To what extent did that support you to be, I mean, affected, to have or to play an effective role in the your negotiations for you as mediator between the parties? And also, to what extent did they cooperate with you when you did all that? Like for us, we usually do that between the parties. For me as an individual, they accept my role in many, like solving many problems, and sometimes also armed conflicts. I did that many times. But when we talk about the parties, this is exactly what is missing for us as women in Yemen. So what did you do? I mean, to what extent did they cooperate with you? You said that you did it as a woman or as a mother. Did they cooperate with you just because you talked with them as mothers, or did you do anything else that made them accept that to play? I mean, for you to play a very good role or a positive role.
Okay, that was a lot. Go right ahead, Visaka.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing is, I must say that trust. The trust is the most important ingredient in peace building, because the government of Sri Lanka and the Liberation Tigers trusted me equally. It's not easy. I'm a mother of 2 military officers. My older son is still serving in my country's military. He's a colonel. But the Liberation Tigers did trust me. And that's why I'm telling, even the diaspora, like, I mean, when I was in London, they came to the gate because they missed me before. So they came to the gate, close to the gate, and told, Visaka, we want to speak to you. So that particular trust is extremely important. I have been to the jungles, but nothing that I have come back and spoken outside. Whatever I have seen, I have never come and spoken. I was completely, my mission was building peace, because we do value everybody's lives equally. And that's the most important thing, the trust. All sides have to trust. And I think more than even whether it's like a mother or a woman, maybe initially because it was mother, I was accepted. But later part, because of the fact that they could trust me. They could trust me with their lives. That's why it was important. And for you, Laila, it's very important because of, I mean, you said that you are a mediator and you also mediate to get release of the detainees. So the trust is the most important thing. Believe us, we did collect the 70,000 signatures. That's because we want to give the Norwegians the legitimacy of like from the public. It's not only the government, but the public is also calling for them. But also what we did was, because we couldn't go to the jungles, what we did was we had balloons, the gas balloons. We wrote the messages in the gas balloons and went to the closest city and just prayed that the wind will take the messages to their side. So we use every possible means and ways of sending positive messages. The church played a crucial role, the Catholic Church especially, played a crucial role in exactly taking our messages. So we use every possible way to send positive messages, really telling that we do believe in a dignified resolution. And we believe that the war was fought also for dignity. So, and we want equality. So send all those messages to them. And we really truly believed it and believe up to now and even today. So that is what is important when you're building peace. You cannot take sides. It's different from a human rights worker because you are speaking to the worst perpetrators, the murderers, but you have no anger, animosity, or you are not going to tell anything to them directly to make them angry. When they are okay with you, yes, I have told the LTT, I'm not going to come to your office because they killed a policeman. I said, if you are going to do things like this, I'm not going to come to your office. Because how can I go back and tell that I have a good relationship with you all when in ceasefire time, when you are killing policemen? So that was where I could speak like that. That was after a long time of trust building, when they knew that I'm telling genuinely for everybody's good. That is important.
All right. Well, trust building is such a difficult issue, and I just love all of your mechanisms, particularly the balloons. We have one last question in the chat, and it's from Graziella Spina. And it's interesting because she's kind of making the link between what you've been talking about, Visaka, your role as a mother and how that enabled you to kind of build trust, because that's mothers transcend combatants and government, etc. But her question is, after such a commitment on peacemaking, have women been able to change their relations inside the family in the sense of promoting greater gender equity?
I personally believe that my husband, my sons are very proud of me. They're really, really proud. I mean, that's the biggest asset that I have, that my husband, who is not here now, I mean, he passed away in 2018, but he was really proud of me. And everywhere possible, he did accompany me because he knew that I'm doing great work. And also my sons are very, very proud of me. So that, yes, within the family, within your friends, within the community, you are looked as, you know, a role model, a person who is, you get the respect. And that's very important. So that definitely changes roles. It does change. Like when the LTT says, this is our mother, this is our woman, it's our lady. You know, one of the Tiger leaders introduced me during the ceasefire to others of them, telling this is our lady. I mean, that trust. My son still serves in the Sri Lankan military, and the commander knows me very well, the Sri Lankan Army commander. They trust me. So to have, that is exactly what I have earned in my life, is that trust that I could get from both these warring parties.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm sorry? Oh, that was a comment from the questioner. All right, well, we are just about out of time. And I think that might be kind of the best place to leave it, Visaka, because what you just said is that your sons and the military officers trust you, and how could they not? You know, your talk has been extremely inspiring, I think, to everybody in the audience, particularly the women working in Yemen. And I'm sure that there will be ways that we can help forge that connection. Before I close it, there is a question regarding whether or not the recording from today's discussion will be available after the talk. My understanding is that it will be available on the Center for Peace and Conflict website. So check back in a few days and you'll be able to share it with all of your colleagues who were not able to join it.
I'm taking a half a second to tell, please. To balance my family, I learned from Ambassador Swanee Hunt. because she brings a son, Charles coming when we are there. So I learn to balance my family and my work. So thank you, Swani. Though even you don't know, I also learn from you that. So thank you very much.
And that is a task that all of us women face, right? Juggling family and work and all of our ideals. So we are just at time. I would like to thank, before we close, it would not be appropriate in a discussion of women in security not to thank the women behind the scenes who make all of this possible. And in this case, there are two. There is Raja Atali, who really spearheaded the speaker series, and there is Maria Teresa Gonzalez Escoval, who is the tech genius and makes everything happen for us here. We are all extremely grateful to you, Visaka, for sharing your expertise with us today, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I had a question, but I couldn't. I was
Okay.
raising, my hand, but there is no sign.
Okay, would you like to ask it?
Yes, please, if it is possible.
Go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Bahri Shamsher, an activist from Yemen. Just really, it is a very nice to hear the whole story for peacemaking regarding the 1325 UN resolution. Just I want to ask, you were accepted to the both sides. It means the government and the Tigers liberation as a mother or as a woman peacemaker. And what was the reaction surrounding you, the families? Because I know here the customs and the norms. Thank you.
Thank you. I was accepted maybe initially as a mother because I went to exactly find out what happened to my missing son. But of course, as a woman, mother is a woman. The society, yes, as I told before, my family, the society, all of them really respect me for the work I do and for working for peace. So that's the biggest strength I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, on behalf of all of the sponsoring organizations, on behalf of David and Ambassador Swani Hunt, the School of Diplomacy, and Rachel is not here, but all of us, thank you very, very much. And we look forward to continuing these conversations with you, Visaka, and with many other brave women working for peace and security.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all. Thank you, Visaka.
Thank you so much. Great event.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you once again. Thank you very much.
See you.
Hope